The night Vincenzo Romano insulted his maid for the last time, he had no idea she was holding the only thing keeping him alive. In his marble mansion, surrounded by armed guards, the most feared mafia boss in the city was already a dead man. He just didn't know it yet. Vincenzo Romano ruled the city like a king rules his kingdom. Everyone feared him. Politicians trembled when he called. Rival gangs disappeared when he whispered their names. His mansion stood on the hill like a fortress, guarded by men with guns and cold eyes. But inside that fortress, there was one person Vincenzo never considered a threat. Her name was Elena, and she cleaned his floors. Elena had worked for Vincenzo for 3 years. She was quiet, almost invisible. Every morning, she arrived before sunrise. Every night, she left after the boss went to bed. She scrubbed marble floors, polished silver, and served coffee without a word. Vincenzo barely looked at her. To him, she was just another servant, as replaceable as the light bulbs in his chandeliers. But Elena saw everything. She heard everything. And she remembered everything. One evening, Vincenzo sat in his office with his top men, discussing a deal gone wrong. Someone had stolen $3 million from his operation. Someone inside his organization had betrayed him. Vincenzo's voice shook the walls as he screamed threats and promises of revenge. His men shifted nervously in their seats. Elena entered quietly with a tray of whiskey. She placed the glasses on the table without making a sound. As she turned to leave, Vincenzo suddenly snapped at her. Did you touch anything in this room yesterday? Elena stopped and looked at him calmly. No, sir. I only cleaned. Vincenzo's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Useless, he muttered. You people see everything but know nothing. His men laughed. Elena simply nodded and left the room. But her smile lingered in the hallway, small and knowing. What Vincenzo didn't know was that Elena was not just a maid. Years ago, her younger brother had worked for Vincenzo as a driver. One night, her brother witnessed something he shouldn't have, a murder Vincenzo committed personally. To silence him, Vincenzo had her brother killed and made it look like an accident. Elena knew the truth. She had spent 3 years getting close, learning Vincenzo's secrets, waiting for the perfect moment. The stolen $3 million? That was Elena's doing. She had befriended Vincenzo's accountant, a nervous man named Marco who handled the boss's dirty money. Over months, Elena earned Marco's trust. She brought him homemade meals, listened to his problems, made him feel seen. Eventually, Marco confessed everything. The account numbers, the passwords, the hidden routes of Vincenzo's money. Elena took careful notes. Using Marco's information, Elena slowly siphoned money from Vincenzo's accounts. She was smart about it, taking small amounts over time so no alarms would trigger immediately. But eventually, Vincenzo's people noticed. That's when the paranoia started. Vincenzo suspected his top men, his business partners, even his own cousin. But he never suspected the quiet maid who refilled his coffee. Elena watched as Vincenzo turned on his own people. He tortured men for confessions they couldn't give. He sent his enforcers to hunt ghosts. The organization began to crack from within. Trust evaporated like morning mist. Meanwhile, Elena continued her silent work. She copied documents from Vincenzo's safe. She recorded conversations through devices hidden in picture frames. She photographed ledgers that detailed every crime, every bribe, every murder. She was building a case that would destroy him completely. One night, Vincenzo held a meeting with his remaining loyal men. They were discussing how to find the traitor. Vincenzo was convinced it was someone close, someone with access to his private affairs. Whoever did this will beg for death, Vincenzo promised, his voice like ice. The men nodded, their faces grim. Elena served dinner that evening. As she placed a plate in front of Vincenzo, he grabbed her wrist suddenly. His grip was tight, painful. "Tell me, Elena," he said, staring into her eyes. "Do you think loyalty matters?" Elena met his gaze without flinching. I think, sir, that people remember how they're treated, she answered quietly. Vincenzo released her wrist with a dismissive laugh. Philosophy from a maid. How amusing. But something in her eyes made him uncomfortable, though he couldn't say why. That same week, Elena made her final move. She had collected enough evidence to put Vincenzo away for life. Financial records, witness testimonies, photographs, recordings. But she didn't go to the police. The police were in Vincenzo's pocket. Instead, she went to the FBI, specifically to Agent Sarah Chin, who had been trying to catch Vincenzo for 5 years. Elena walked into the FBI office with a single USB drive. Everything you need is here, she told Agent Chin. Bank accounts, murder confessions, names of corrupt officials. But I want something in exchange. Agent Chen leaned forward. What? Elena's voice was steady. I want to watch when you arrest him. I want him to see my face and know it was me. Agent Chen studied the quiet woman before her, seeing the steel beneath the surface. Deal, she said. 3 days later, federal agents surrounded Vincenzo's mansion at dawn. Helicopters circled overhead. SWAT teams took positions. Vincenzo was eating breakfast when the doors burst open. Men in tactical gear flooded through his fortress like water through a broken dam. Vincenzo's guards were overwhelmed instantly, their weapons useless against federal authority. Vincenzo stood frozen as agents cuffed his wrists. What is this? He shouted. You have no right. Agent Chen stepped forward, holding up the USB drive. We have every right, Mr. Romano. Bank fraud, money laundering, racketeering, and 14 counts of murder. Vincenzo's face went pale. That's impossible. My records are secure. Agent Chen smiled. Not secure enough. Then she stepped aside, and Elena walked into the room. She stood before Vincenzo in her maid's uniform, her expression calm. Vincenzo's eyes widened in recognition and disbelief. You, he whispered. Elena stepped closer, looking into the eyes of the man who had killed her brother. You called me useless, she said softly. You said I see everything but know nothing. You were half right. I did see everything. But I also understood everything. Every secret, every crime, every weakness. While you strutted around like a king, I was dismantling your empire piece by piece. Vincenzo's face twisted with rage and confusion. Your brother, he suddenly remembered. The driver. Elena nodded. You murdered him because he saw too much. So I became someone who saw everything but appeared to see nothing. I made myself invisible. And that invisibility gave me power you never imagined. Vincenzo lunged forward, but the agents held him back. I'll kill you, he screamed. Elena didn't flinch. No, she said quietly. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison, remembering that you were destroyed by a maid. As the agents led Vincenzo away, he kept twisting back to stare at Elena, as if he still couldn't believe it. The great Vincenzo Romano, brought down not by rival gangsters or police raids, but by the quiet woman who cleaned his floors. The woman he had insulted, dismissed, and ignored. In the following weeks, Vincenzo's entire organization collapsed. Using Elena's evidence, the FBI arrested over 40 people. Dirty cops, corrupt judges, hired killers, and business partners. Millions of dollars were seized. The city that had lived under Vincenzo's shadow for decades finally breathed free. Elena testified in court, her voice steady as she detailed everything she had witnessed. Vincenzo sat in the defendant's chair, his empire reduced to ashes, his reputation destroyed. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Life in prison without parole. After the trial, Elena disappeared from public view. She took the reward money from the FBI and moved to another city, far from the shadows of her past. She opened a small bookstore, a quiet life she had always dreamed of. Sometimes, late at night, she thought about her brother and hoped he would be proud. The powerful often make one fatal mistake. They underestimate the powerless. They see servants, assistants, and helpers as part of the scenery, as invisible as furniture. But those invisible people watch, listen, and remember. Vincenzo Romano learned this lesson too late. He thought his fortress was impenetrable. He never realized the real threat was already inside, sweeping his floors and serving his coffee, patiently waiting for justice. Subscribe for daily Mafia boss stories where the powerful are exposed and the underestimated rise.